The time for convening has arrived, so we'll start this evening's series of meetings. The first item of the evening is part of our work session, and I would ask that Keith McMillan, our Director of Data Strategy and Analytics and AI Integration, come forward and talk to us about our update. Keith, welcome.
It was on.
There it is.
There we go. All right. So, anybody familiar with technology in the room? So anyway, Mayor, Council, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you guys. All right, let's get started here. All right, for our agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about, well, obviously data strategy, analytics, and AI. We're going to start with some definitions, where we are today, as I've been here now just over 4 months. And I had a chance to meet a lot of people and learn a lot about the city, but also our future work plan, kind of covering the next few months or so through the end of the year. So, all right, we're going to start with analytics. These are kind of the different types: descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. This is kind of where we're at today, the descriptive analytics part. What happened? You're looking in the past. It's the least mature or complex form of analytics. An example would be that there was an increase in the number of tire failures on city vehicles in the last 6 months. You know, it's often an example of tracking like one variable over time, such as revenue, cost, or an event type. Diagnostic analytics, you're trying to find out now, why did an event happen? So you're still looking in the past, but you're looking at multiple variables. So for instance, I'm going to stick with this tire example on city vehicles. So the increase in tire failures on the vehicles was caused by an underinflation of tires in 75% of cases based on examination of the incident data. Predictive analytics, now we're getting a little bit more towards AI. We're starting to use machine learning. You may want to look at that truck and say, hey, that tire's going to fail. That's the point of the prediction. Using a data set, you might take intervals like the time between its last service, when they were installed, manufacturer recommendations around tire pressure and so on, and interpolated values on how quickly tires tend to lose pressure over time. And you may want to recommend, hey, you need to look at that tire. And then prescriptive analytics, which now you really get into more complex analyses, is to how to make an event happen, or in this case, you don't want a tire to fail. So by adding a pressure sensor, these are very common these days, you can monitor in real time, or you take regular images when a fleet vehicle enters the building, and you can analyze and more accurately predict the failure and make decisions about how to prevent it. Moving into AI. So what is AI? That's a touchy subject these days. And if my thing would flip, there we go. So how does it work? It's a combination of statistics that are predicting what you might say or type, especially if you're using something like ChatGPT or Claude. And the logic comes in the form of the programming that gives it its structure and generates an answer based off of that logic, which is made to look like human reasoning, which in reality it is not. That data is analyzed whether it's the text you're typing or flowing in from a system where it can make a prediction and ultimately make what we view as a decision. Where AI excels is that it can process far more data than we can, and often with greater accuracy. Some of the examples, I'm going to safely assume each one of you has probably used at least one of those, Siri, Alexa, or ChatGPT, and may use them regularly. I have no problem admitting that I use ChatGPT almost every day. All of those cameras and sensors on your cars that display speed limit signs, cross-traffic alerts, pedestrians walking behind your car, all are algorithms based in AI and machine learning techniques. Zillow, Realtor.com, and the like, they don't have access to all of the county assessor and tax info that we have. but they use a combination of some of the public records, and along with predictive models, based on variables, they make a ballpark estimate of saying, hey, that house is worth $750,000, $500,000, whatever it might be, which is probably a little low for Sandy Springs. Conversely, what AI is not. It does have limits. While you're interacting with it, it may seem cheery and pleasant. It's designed to be that way. There actually is no emotion behind it. It doesn't have a name, an address, or a pet goldfish, even if you do ask it that, and I have asked it that. It's more like the pedestrian dilemma. You know, a man and a small child are in a crosswalk, and a self-driving car comes along powered by AI, and it can't stop. Who does it hit? It can't make that judgment. While it can recommend how to word your email, it's not going to write the next hit song. IBM already tried that in 2016. Watson tried to do it. Does anybody actually remember it? I see by the lack of raising your hands you don't. It's actually a pretty decent song. It's in my iTunes library. Bias, that's also a very touchy subject with AI. Because it's not human, it lacks empathy and EQ. It doesn't care about you, and it may come across heartless in that regard. AI is really just a mirror of its programming and the data it receives, for better or for worse, and a lot of times the examples are pretty worse. Also in 2016, a good example is Microsoft had to turn off its Tay chatbot when it quickly started spewing hate and after interacting with social media. It's a function of the data it's fed. When people keep feeding it hateful things, you know, to have fun with it, it starts spewing it right back because that's what it's been trained on. Also, subjective decisions. You know, how, Mayor, you might define success versus how somebody else might define success, two totally different things. You know, if the AI model is based on those subjective decisions, often the result you receive might not be necessarily what you're expecting. All right. Prediction versus recognition. It was actually on my first day, somebody told me about the interest of predicting when potholes might occur, based off of what another city was doing, which is a very interesting idea. And I was looking into it more, and really what it was, what the city was doing was not trying to predict when a pothole might occur. It was actually, they were doing a road survey, and this is an example picture from it, and they were using AI recognition models to go, what's the likelihood that that's a pothole? You know, while if you look at that one in the center, it looks like 68%, you may say that's kind of low. In reality, in AI terms, it's all about statistics. Anything above 50%, very high likelihood that that crater is, in fact, a pothole. All right. So, where are we today? To determine this, it involved a lot of engagement and discovery, and I cannot help but thank staff enough because they made my job so much easier because everybody was so willing. So far, there's been 15, sorry? Somebody, no? Sorry, okay. All right. So far, 15 different departmental interviews, which that number actually was doubled because a lot of them I'd go back to for more information. We reviewed their processes, evaluated possible solutions. You know, there's endless possibilities for automation. Been part of demos and an evaluation of software and how are we collecting, using, and protecting data. And it was a great opportunity to learn, you know, shifting from the private sector where my entire career has been previously. Staff, vendors, you know, counterparts in other cities. The collaborative and supportive culture has been very welcome. But while the systems and the people and the culture are different, many challenges are common in both private and public sector of how do we use data more effectively? How can we safely use AI? Those questions are very common. All right, so where are we at today? There are variations on these data maturity models. I'd probably rate it somewhere between like a 1.25, 1.5. I don't see that as a bad thing. It's very common when you're starting out. We've been siloed from that public-private partnership in the past. A lot of our reporting is manual. It's exports of files like Excel files and pulling them from one or two systems and then cobbling them together. It's not a criticism of the content or its usefulness, but it illustrates and remembers those definitions of analytics. It's manual, rear-word, descriptive analytics in the past. We can progress quickly, in my opinion, moving to stages 3 and even possibly 4 in the near term. We're working on the clear data vision, and the strategy is working its way through staff and approvals. A request for data transformation technology is in process. This will allow us to merge data sources and generate a consistent view of our data across the city, and document more of our business rules, and also implement automation. Stage 4, I'm at least one of the dedicated employees to focusing on the improvement of data processes, along with gaining visibility into what data is being used. We are actually pretty unique. We have what few others do. We looked at some other cities, both close to us in geographic proximity and some of the cities that we used in the retreat comparison. Not many have a data leadership or dedicated resources to it. One area where I found absolutely no comparison is where cities do have data teams. They're all part of the IT department. I'm in the city management. By extension, we do have commitment from council and staff and city leaders. That's not actually very common, either in public or private sector. We are aligned with national trends. Many cities are trying to work on the development of AI policies and how to govern the use of it, whether it's uploading spreadsheets to AI or other things. But there is a lot of uncertainty. Some of the local cities are exploring AI projects around call centers or the use of Microsoft Copilot. Also seeing our comments and questions of what other cities are doing. I've been asked by other cities and likewise been asking cities for help too. That's been part of the helpful collaboration. And here's a few things that we are doing with AI. I don't think a lot of it's been publicized. GIS, we've been doing significant work for some time. The Canopy study is well known. It uses an image recognition model not dissimilar to what's being used by other cities for potholes, but it's trained for vegetation to recognize what is a tree and what is not. Security. CrowdStrike is the application that we use to monitor threats on our network, and it's connected to our devices and AI tools. Predictive AI analyzes historical data to forecast potential threats. It builds behavior profiles to identify irregular patterns based on past user behavior. And it uses generative AI to simulate attacks and design defenses to protect our city systems. The fire department, they were an early adopter of Microsoft Power BI, which is an industry leader in reporting and self-service analytics. Starting with just a couple of users, they recently added significantly more and would ultimately like to share the data across both the department and externally as part of their certification. This is actually a quote from the fire department. They are analyzing incident and response data to identify trends, decisions about shift planning, and drive continuous improvements in efficiency and emergency response. They're just starting to scratch the surface with this. They're starting to use some of the advanced features now, which include forecasting and natural language processing. As they gain more confidence in their data quality, they've also started to explore the augmented analytics features, which does bring AI into the process and can explain different trends and how things are moving. Another area that we just started exploring, this is actually my work on the screen, is public engagement. Working with the communications team to analyze sentiment from public comments on projects. Using character recognition models, we're reading the contents of PDFs, emails, picking apart relevant sections and aligning them with online submissions for the various projects. In turn, after that data is cleansed and combined, which is the bottom part of that screen, which is a pretty extensive process, and that's not even the full picture. It is put through an AI model that analyzes sentiment, positive, negative, and neutral, and scores each of their comments. The word cloud in the upper right corner is actually a summary of that, and it was the Roberts Drive project, one of the roundabouts, I forget the third one that we did, and another area that we're starting to explore as well, which is some of the additional ideas of our neighbors grouping together. Are we seeing, through fuzzy matching searches, we can see on a limited basis of our groups of people in a neighborhood commenting on the same project. Another idea that we want to explore too is where the project is located, see how the sentiment changes based off of the distance from the project. And then there's also the idea of, we know that there are folks that comment on projects frequently. We'd like to get a better understanding of how they change over time or do not. Also on the screen, you see the comments, and there's documentation in red versus blue. The red stuff is all of the cleansing part. The blue stuff is the smarts, where AI is being used. So it kind of underscores the point of almost 90% of the work goes into cleaning the data, 10% goes into using AI. All right. Next up, future work plan. So what's on the horizon? So some of our efforts. The need for the solid foundation is important. That's what I'm really focused on right now. Consistency, data quality for AI to work as intended. We're working on policies and documentation on how we collect, store, and use the data. Think of them as the ordinances on how we interact with data in the city. Data strategy, governance, cross-departmental documents are now in place, and more are in the works. I mentioned silos a little bit earlier about the carryover from the public-private partnership and outsourced services, where departments were provided different contractors and the data was kind of inherently siloed. Now that we're all city staff, we have the opportunity to break down those silos, integrate the data for everyone to use, and better shape our data to take advantage of both recent advances in technology, but also be more ready for the future. We're working on strategies, policies, general documentation around data. We have some initial versions of the data strategy, charter documents, and so on. Another thing is the data and AI literacy program. Some of our fellow cities are doing programs like these. We want to get staff thinking more about data and AI to be more data-driven. Both a basic and more advanced class are about to be rolled out. We're actually doing our first dry run for our power users to test how that program's going to work on May 30th. Yeah, it was AI calling. We're in data. We got you. All right. And then on the screen is the new Digital Innovation Initiative. It just rolls off the tongue in my case sometimes. In partnership with the communications team, we're testing tools to speed up the analysis and complexity. But this is kind of the umbrella that we're giving. It's not just about AI. It's not just about data. It's about innovation. And we want to make Sandy Springs an innovative city for the future. All right. Okay. Next up. So the PIN grant application. The Partnership for Inclusive Innovation, they have community research grant. We just submitted this application last Thursday. That was the deadline. Their theme for 2025, and actually the year before as well, was AI. They're awarding up to 4 grants. and it's focused not just on AI, but also improving citizen experiences. Our idea was to leverage AI to review documents in the permitting process with the goal of reducing the average number of reviews. By using the models to extract and categorize information, it can speed up and ease the manual process on staff. With a more automated review, staff can focus more on complicated projects and requirements. We have a partner from Georgia Tech, and his team will be working with us, and they're eager to get started, assuming we win. And we should find out in mid-July if we won the grant. And with the possibility of, assuming we win, we would start in September, and it would run until September 2026. Last thing, the What Works City Certification Program. Very recently, they reached out to us, and we started working with Results for America, which they assist cities on their data journey. It is internationally recognized, 102 cities and counting, mostly in the U.S., but also in Mexico and South America. There's 2 that are certified here in Georgia. One is Savannah, the other is Athens-Clarke County. We are assessed on 8 different practices with an additional kind of 40 sub-criteria. We completed the assessment. It's now in review. We should find out, I believe, also in July. And they may come back to us for additional documentation. And it's been really helpful with their network. I've been meeting new people from the CIO of Tacoma. I recently just had a conversation the other day with my counterpart in Syracuse, Norfolk, Virginia, Westerville, Ohio, and there was another one today in New York. So we also revised our data strategy that was in progress to align with the What Works City certification program. And that is it. Any questions?
Yeah, Keith, thank you.
Yeah.
You've done a lot in 4 months, so thank you very much. Any questions by Mr. Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Fascinating stuff. So one of your first couple of stages you talked about, that's taking things that are recorded by hand and putting them into a system so that they can all talk to each other, as well as, I guess, are we measuring everything and recording everything we need to record so that we can analyze stuff later? And how do you go about looking at, are we capturing enough information from each one of these little segments so that we can put it in and the machine churns and comes out with a good answer? That's a simple way of saying it.
No, I don't think it's simple, but what I like to say, kind of in response to your question, would be we don't have a data problem as a city. We have a data integration problem. So are we collecting the data? Simple answer is yes. We're collecting tons of data. We've got data from every conceivable department, every conceivable source. It's getting it talking, and that's why I'm here. Is a longer-term plan is to get it into a centralized data location where it's modeled, cleansed, integrated, so that community development is talking to Rec and Parks, is talking to Public Works, and it all is a single pane of glass view where you can see everything together. That's the goal. Does that kind of answer your question? Okay.
Any other? Ms. Mueller, I've asked Ms. Mueller to be kind of the council liaison and lead on this, and there's been a lot done in a very short period of time. Any comments that you'd like to make?
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Keith. I think that it was foundational to have you join our staff because many people don't realize the importance of data. I mean, this is a timeless problem that all entities have, and if you don't have the data at the right levels, with the right quality, stored, all the things that you mentioned, you can't really do anything with it. Mm-hmm. And if things don't talk, everybody has their own copies, that can cause chaos. I'm not saying that it is chaos here, but it can and when you're doing internal reporting. So I think that once we get this foundation and we focus on that, it's really going to take off. And I think if you're working with your plan and getting the grant and we test things, we're going to that's going to put us even forward. Mm-hmm. So thank you.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity through, you mentioned Bloomberg Philanthropies, and so I was invited as a group of mayors to go to Johns Hopkins and sit down and talk about what cities were doing and in this whole realm of utilizing data, tracking data, but more importantly, figuring out how to solve problems with data. And it was real clear everybody was interested, but nobody had any real answers yet.
Yeah.
And so I came back and talked to the city manager and said, there's a real opportunity for us to be a leading community in this area. Not that there are not other communities out there doing the same thing, and you're talking to a lot of them. They were all trying to figure it out. But this has, it was the mayor of San Jose who told me they were using AI to find potholes. So, like a lot of us, he got a little bit ahead of time. But they are trying to figure out how to do that kind of analytics to be predictive and also prescriptive, so that they can figure out how to get there ahead of time and solve problems. The easiest problems to solve are the ones that haven't occurred yet. If you can figure out how to find them before they occur, and that's what these tools have the power to do for cities like Sandy Springs. And I came back. I really wanted us to be a leader in AI and trying to figure this new frontier. So staff has responded to it. City manager has taken it on. Melissa's really, with her technology background, and then bringing you on board to help us guide us through this and get us to where we want to go. So this is an exciting new opportunity for the community, the city. The whole goal is to be able to be faster, cheaper, better, and deliver results with the technology and the data that's just lying around us, but not necessarily being used properly. So, Keith, thank you very much for what you're doing. Yeah, Mr. Bauman.
Thank you. Great presentation. Count me among the early stage of my use of this. Somebody that's not great with like PowerPoint. It's just a great tool, some of these tools, just for some basic sort of word processing, Excel tasks. I want to focus a little bit, just briefly. Are you working also with our public safety, police and fire departments? For many years, and maybe if you're uncomfortable talking about it, but I've heard the term predictive policing. And we've also done some, I think, work on predictive emergency response. Are you going to be in that area as well, or is that sort of going to be carved out for a different specialty? Because there's a whole world of opportunities in predictive policing and predictive emergency response.
Yeah, I think that is a longer-term goal. To answer your question more simply, yes, I've been working with the fire department and will continue to do so. Been working with the police department on a more limited basis. Micah from the police department sits on our technical working group that we started, which is kind of our power users of data. So we're plugged in, but we haven't really had that conversation about potential predictive policing. I think that's still a long way off. And it is, you get into very touchy data ethics areas when you start talking about policing. So those are some of those foundational policy things that we have to work on before we kind of
It's a great observation. I think some of it is done intuitively, but you're right. There is a big body of work on ethics. I know this has come out. There's been a lot of this work done I've seen at higher levels of government. I've read articles about the FBI and some others. So we'll be real interested, obviously, pursuing improved public safety, which is our core competency, but in a way that's fair and certainly law-abiding and ethical.
I would even argue, too, that the ethic part of it is not just about public safety, but even things like call center. What are we collecting about people and how are we using it? Those are things that we have to be cognizant of. By that same token, hearing for registrations on some of the sports programs and stuff, we collect stuff like birth certificates. Again, how are we storing?
So where do you layer in that conversation, and when, and for the city manager, can you tell us when that reaches the level of a policy decision at the elected official level as you're doing this work? Are there sort of known places at which you say you got to take a pause, or do you embed that in the process on the front end? Because, really, these are very serious and important concerns, and I agree with the mayor in the effort to do things more efficiently, cheaper, better, and all that. When do the policymakers weigh in on this process? I mean, you're now informing us, and we've just opened a whole other box of cereal here.
Well, probably Pandora's box of
Pandora's
cereal.
box.
Yes.
What is the role of the elected body, and when?
That's a great question. To start to answer that question, actually, a local city here is working on a data classification program. And that's part of the more extended work plan that we have. I just don't have room for it in this presentation, which is to start to classify the types of data that we collect by sensitivity of, is it something that needs to be more protected, or is it something that can be more public? Various varying levels that we can work on internally on the staff side to develop those levels, define it, and then share it with mayor and council. I'm not really sure what the total answer to that question is. That's something I can kind of work on and come back to you on.
As long as it's on the radar screen, I'll just wrap up. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the opportunity is incredibly exciting, and period, full stop. Ultimately, we're the guardrails on something like this. So, we're the ones that have to make, at some point, those judgments. But
And we're not there yet.
Not
This
even
is-
close.
Yeah, exactly.
But the fact that you're sensitive to it, and we're sensitive to it, is good. Thank you.
Any others? All right, well, that wraps up the work session. Keith, again, thank you so much. That was very helpful. All right, we'll move now to regular order. Will the city clerk please make the announcements and call the roll?
So I'd just like to remind everybody in attendance, please silence all cell phones and other electronic devices at this time. Individuals who would like to provide public comment at a city council meeting are required to complete and submit public comment card. There we go. In advance of the meetings, public comment cards are available online at the chamber entrance. Those providing public comment may be allotted up to 3 minutes to speak on their single chosen topic. As I call roll, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Rusty Paul.
Present.
Councilmember John Paulson.
Here.
Councilmember Melody Kelly.
Here.
Councilmember Melissa Mueller.
Here.
Councilmember Jody Rochelle.
Here.
Councilmember Tibby DeJulio.
Here.
And Councilmember Andy Bauman.
Here.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment cards?
Yes, there we go. Okay. We've received 4 public comment cards this evening. The first is from John Vander Weil.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Sandy Springs resident for 1 year. I live on Boylston Drive. Over the last 4 months, I noticed recreational vehicles, i.e. Sprinter vans, converted into recreational vehicles, campers, that are either abandoned or long-term parking. Little research into the code. I guess there's 72 hours for abandoned vehicles or vehicles to not be moving for RVs. And I've called the police. They've been very responsive, but no towing or any type of impact on that. Is that the right approach, or just to bring it to council's attention that I, as a resident, don't feel like we need to attract transient folks to be camping in our city?
911 is one way to do it. You're perfectly appropriate to be able to do that. Also, if it's over a certain period of time, our code enforcement officers can go check, and either the police or the code enforcement folks, if they find there's a violation, can issue a citation. So you did the right thing by calling 911, or you can call the call center, and that'll have the code enforcement folks come out and look. We have had some problems with commercial vehicles being parked in some of the spaces around here at City Springs. We've had to crack down on some of that. So, but you're doing the right thing, and if you see something, say something.
Yeah, well, thank you for fielding my comment and your support. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next is Bill Griffith, who will be followed by Alexander Sommer.
Mr. Griffith.
Mr. Mayor and council members, the last time I was here, I began discussing the Roberts Drive speed study done last August at the request of the Public Works Department and published last October as a PowerPoint presentation, the study. I trust that y'all have seen a copy of that study. Just before my 3 minutes expired last time, I was discussing my comments to the findings shown on slide 5 of the study. I didn't have time to get to my second and third comments to those findings. I'll do that now and then continue on to other slides. My comments regarding slide 5 continued. B, 15% of the average daily vehicle count equates to 621 vehicles a day. And those vehicles were going more than 8 miles an hour over the speed limit. And the pedestrian count one day was 64. And there are significant gaps in the sidewalks on Roberts Drive. Folks, that's a tragedy waiting to happen. C, the study says that Roberts Drive, quote, qualifies for traffic calming devices like radar speed feedback signs, however, end quote. However, as previously discussed, the existing such signs don't seem to be particularly effective with a lot of drivers. Thus, it seems clear that Roberts Drive needs more effective traffic calming devices. Reducing the speed limit to 25 and installing speed cushions or humps would probably be the most effective. 3, on slide 6, A, regarding OCGA 40-6-183, contrary to the study, I don't see any mention in that code section to the city needing GDOT approval to modify the speed limit on roads such as Roberts Drive. Actually, it appears that OCGA 40-6-181C and 40-6-183A3, B, and D specifically authorize the city to drop the speed limit on the Phase 2 portion of Roberts Drive to 25 miles an hour with the appropriate traffic and engineering investigation. B, the resolution regarding speed limit changes shown at the right side of the slide is very confusing to me, and I've not been able to get clarification. I won't take time now to elaborate on the confusion, but I will do so in the addendum to these comments. Number 4, on slide 7, regarding the city's use of, quote, U.S. Limits 2 methodology and the recommended speed was 35 miles an hour, end quote. I'm not familiar with the details of the, quote, information on the input factors and the expert system decision rules, end quote, of that methodology. However, I am familiar with the acronym GIGO, garbage in and garbage out. I'll discuss the last 2 slides next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Mr. Sommer.
Who will be followed by Corey Isaacson.
Hey everybody, how you guys doing? So I'm really cool about the digital innovative initiative. That is what I do for a living, so that is all my world, whether choosing AWS, Azure, Snowflake, Clover, Matillion, whichever tools we want to use. Awesome, and I would love to be a part of that. And based on the costs for all of that and hiring people, by me sitting in Jody's chair over there next year, over 4 years, we'd probably save the city $500,000. So I'm going to I'll save the city $500,000 just by being myself. Great. But I did want to talk about the community development block grants that we discussed, that were brought up last time, which, if people are unaware, is flexible funding for like local governments for development and economic prosperity and things like that. The mayor said that he was going to talk to one of the representatives of Congress in our city, which is Rich McCormick. are we thinking of the same guy to ask for help? The guy that voted against saving marshlands in Louisiana, the one that voted against helping Hawaii that was just devastated by fires, getting rid of rapid Ohio death, the same guy that I know how much Israel means to you, the same guy that voted against money for Israel to help them prolong their situation. Is this the same guy? Are we thinking the same guy that was booed in Roswell for his policies, or, the guy that has enabled the government to, create concentration camps? Are we talking about the same guy? Because it's almost as if we don't have other options of people to talk to. Oh, wait, we do. We have Lucy McBath. We have somebody else who represents us that doesn't do all those things. And don't think that I cherry-picked liberal things on that. All the bills that I mentioned were all passed in the last 2 years with overwhelming support. So this guy doesn't care about anything. So why don't we talk to Lucy about this, and maybe she can help us? Or does the idea of asking a black woman for help make you cry more than Bama fans after a Georgia whooping? Did I get that right? I think I got that right.
Corey Isaacson.
Good evening. My public comment pertains to the buffer zone ordinance repeal that's being recommended for later on the agenda. So this is my first time here, so you all let me know if I should continue with my public comment now or if I should come back when that agenda item is on.
It's your choice.
Okay, well, if it's all right with you all, then I will go ahead and start with my public comment now. So I'm the legal director at the ACLU of Georgia, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to address you all tonight. I want to start by thanking the city attorney and ADL for their partnership here. And what I'm talking about, again, is this recommendation by the city attorney, Dan Lee, to repeal the buffer zone ordinance, which restricted certain protest and speech rights, recommending that ordinance for repeal tonight. We at the ACLU of Georgia have been very concerned about this ordinance, and we saw it as a blatantly unconstitutional violation of First Amendment rights. I want to thank ADL because when I reached out to the ADL to discuss our concerns, they immediately took this seriously, and they mobilized to address our concerns, and City Attorney Dan Lee did the same. He listened to us and he listened to the ADL, and he admirably has recommended to this council that the ordinance be repealed, and we're grateful for their partnership on this. We explained in our previous letter to this council why the ordinance is unconstitutional. I'll just repeat some of that shortly here. So essentially, any time, place, or manner restriction on speech has to be narrowly tailored, and it has to allow open, ample, alternative methods of communication. This ordinance does neither. Instead of being narrowly tailored, it's about as broad as it can get. It applies to the whole city of Sandy Springs and restricts expression and speech across the entire city parameters. Does this mean I'll get extra time? Apparently the microphone still works. Great. Thank you, Mayor. So like I was saying, instead of being narrowly tailored, it's just about as opposite of that as you can get. And as far as leaving open, ample, alternative communication channels, it does not. It shuts down speech and expression across the whole city. Ordinances like this that have attempted to do something similar have only been found constitutional when speech is restricted very specifically to a limited and particularly sensitive location. So I also want to address briefly why this ordinance is dangerous in addition to it being unlawful. Oftentimes restrictions on speech are done in the name of protecting vulnerable communities, and I believe that that's what the council's intent was here, and that's a good intent and it's an admirable one. But we've seen in our history and around the world that when government restricts speech, all of us become less free, and vulnerable communities are often the ones that suffer the brunt of the violation. We've seen limits on free speech ultimately used against the very communities that we seek to protect. What does protect vulnerable communities are robust and solid constitutional freedoms. Those freedoms and protections protect us all. Taking away our constitutional right to speak freely and to debate and to dissent doesn't make us more safe. It puts us all at risk. It weakens the bedrock of free expression that has allowed so many communities in this country to thrive. Fighting against hate and discrimination against all people is noble and it's necessary. And we applaud the council for attempting to do that, but we have to do it in a way that leaves our foundational constitutional rights intact, and this ordinance does not do that. So we urge the council to repeal this unconstitutional ordinance. And again, we thank City Attorney Dan Lee, thank you very much, and the ADL for their partnership here. Corey Isaacson. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, we're working on it. We are still live streaming also, just so you all know. Excuse me. This is agenda item number 2025-107 under presentations. This is an EMS Week proclamation, May 18th through the 24th, 2025, presented by Mayor Paul.
Well, my microphone is still dead, so I'm going to read as loud as I possibly can. Can everybody hear back up there? Good. Proclamation recognizing Emergency Medical Services Week. Whereas Emergency Medical Services, EMS, or vital public services dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience illness or injury. And whereas the EMS system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, other support personnel. And whereas the member, okay, here we go. Thank you. And whereas the members of EMS teams engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills, and whereas since 2008, American Medical Response, AMR, North Fulton Operations, has been in an agreement with the City of Sandy Springs and other cities in North Fulton to provide EMS services to our residents, ensuring that high-quality emergency care is accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas in 2024, AMR North Fulton Operations responded to over 35,000 calls for services in North Fulton County, with 10,505 calls in the city of Sandy Springs. And whereas the members of AMR North Fulton Operations implemented enhanced services such as First Watch, First Pass, preemptive safety devices, and revised deployment models to improve response times and services, and participated in multiple community job and health fairs, career days, and other charitable events in Sandy Springs and other cities in North Fulton in 2024. And whereas the dedication and commitment of AMR North Fulton operations personnel have been instrumental in enhancing the health and safety of our community. Now, therefore, I, Russell K. Paul, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Sandy Springs, proclaim this week of May 18th through 24, 2025 as Emergency Medical Services Week to recognize and celebrate the contributions of our EMS professionals and support them in their mission to provide life-saving care given under my hand and the seal of the city of Sandy Springs, Georgia, on this 20th day of May 2025. We have representatives here, so we'll present the proclamation. Gentlemen, thank you so much for what you do. We appreciate your service to our community. And here's the proclamation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Hold on. Got a photograph, Come on over here. Gentlemen, thank you. We appreciate it. I put the glasses in so I can read the next one. All right, we've got a group of people sitting over here to my left up there that a lot of people I recognize. Yes. Okay.
If you'd like, I can read the title. It's
All right.
agenda item number 2025-108. This is National Public Works Week Proclamation, May 18th through the 25th, presented by Mayor Paul.
All right, we'll make it official. National Public Works Week. As I say, we've got a group of people up here to my left, a lot of people that I recognize. Some of you have been with us for a long time. So I'm going to read the proclamation. Whereas public works professionals serve our citizens as recognized first responders, providing vital support to emergency response partners, helping protect essential services and restoring those services following an emergency. I'm sure somebody jumped up and fixed the lights when they went out. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to public health, high quality of life, and the well-being of the people of the city of Sandy Springs. And whereas the infrastructure and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector. And whereas it is in the public interest of our citizens in the city of Sandy Springs to gain knowledge of and maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programming to their respective communities. And whereas the year 2025 marks the 65th annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now, therefore, I, Russell K. Paul, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Sandy Springs, proclaim the week of May 18th through 24, 2025 as National Public Works Week and urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in recognizing the substantial contributions our public works professionals and engineers, managers, and employees make to protecting our health and safety and advancing the quality of life for all, given under my hand and the seal of Sandy Springs, Georgia, on this, the 20th day of 2025. Are you all coming down? Oh, come on down. Marty gets it, all right? Here we go. Let's wait till everybody gets in here.
We've got a minute. You're going to need a bigger camera.
Wesley, you got to move in. Oh, okay. We're still gathering.
All right, you got everybody here? All right, make sure you can see the camera or you can't be photographed. you're standing behind me, Melissa, you're not going to be seen. Get up.
Okay, we're going to squeeze in on this side. Squeeze in. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2.
All right, thank you all for what you do for us. We really appreciate it. Even when you tear our roads up. You're welcome. We're going to take a brief recess to allow the technology folks to try and resolve the issues we have up here because our screens are down and our microphones are down. We're going into that part of the session where our ability to see materials that are being presented by staff are pretty crucial. So we'll ask to take a quick break and allow the technicians to try and resolve the issues. When the power surges occur, it messes up everybody's electronics. So it may take us a little bit to get them restored, but it's important to us to be able to conduct the business. Thank you. We're operating on generation. Another tree, huh? They'll bring out iPads if we need it. Yeah, I'm sure that's I had my first cousin call me yesterday. I've got a tree down across my driveway at the cabin. It's just all this severe weather we have around here. All right, we're going to reconvene now that we have power.
I'm getting full up here.
All right, we'll go to the public hearings. Will the clerk please read the first item? I need council up here if we can get everybody in so we can assure we've got a quorum.
All right, this is agenda item number 109. Consideration of a resolution to adopt the 2025 Community Development Block Grant. I actually don't have a presenter for this.
Where's Michelle left?
She'll
Okay.
be here in a second, yeah.
We got the next one?
No, we've got an approved agenda. We don't have Kristen here either. All right, we'll suspend briefly until we get our presenters back. It happens, and of course, the backup generator, what happens when you have this power surge is it messes up with all the electronics. It takes a while to sort through it. I don't know. Hope not.
Andy, what are we waiting for now?
We're waiting for our presenters who went up to get iPads.
Oh.
Let's see. Well, it looks like it's a fairly widespread power outage around the community. We're still operating somewhat on backup.
Mayor, under the rules, can we move to another agenda item, or?
Well, hopefully we can get them here briefly. We would take a motion to be able to scramble it, but we may, let me see. We may have the same problem with the next item. Yep, she's presenting the next three items. So. Pardon? Okay. Yeah, yeah. We're back up.
We're good.
We're back. We just came back. Just as soon as you disappeared, we came back up. All right, Ms. McIntosh Ross, you're our next three presenters, so I'm going to go ahead and bring you up and carry us through these.
All right, did we already announce the?
Yep, this is agenda item number 2025-109, consideration of a resolution adopting the 2025 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan presented by Planning and Zoning Manager Michelle McIntosh Ross.
Ms. McIntosh Ross.
Yes, great. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm here with a resolution for your consideration to adopt the 2025 Annual Action Plan, or the AAP, which is a component of the city's CDBG program. The city is required to create and update its annual action plan. It's a summary of the annual activities for the use of the funds from the CDBG program. In early spring of 2023, the city adopted the 5-year consolidated plan where it was recommended that the monies would be used for sidewalk construction, design, utility relocation, and potential right-of-way acquisition. In 2025, staff will continue working on the implementation of the South Roswell Road multi-year sidewalk project, specifically the area south of the Interstate 285 that runs along Roswell Road, from Northwood Drive to Stewart Drive, and from Stewart Drive to Long Island Drive, and the Hope Road Sidewalk Project in the north end starting at Roswell Road to Dunwoody Place. The Section 108 loan funds will allow the city to accelerate project construction within without any significant financial impact. The staff has prepared the draft AAP and made it available for public review and comment, and held a public hearing on March 18th of 2025. So staff recommends approval of a resolution to adopt the Sandy Springs 2025 Annual Action Plan. That is my...
All right. Madam Clerk, have we received any public comment cards?
We have not.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. You've heard the report of the Planning and Zoning Manager. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson. Oh, is it Mr. Yeah, Mr. Paulson.
No, Mayor Paul.
Mr. Baumann, I'm sorry. I was looking the wrong way.
Thank you. I move that we approve agenda item 2025-109, request to adopt the 2025 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan.
Motion by Mr. Baumann. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve Agenda Item 2025-109, a resolution to adopt the 2025 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on Agenda Item 2025-109, a resolution adopting the 2025 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
This is agenda item number 2025-110, consideration of a resolution to approve a Metro River Protection Act certificate for River Corridor Review RC 2501SS for Old Riverside Park, presented by Planning and Zoning Manager Michelle McIntosh Ross.
Ms. McIntosh Ross.
Good evening again. For your consideration is the approval of a resolution to authorize the Metropolitan River Protection Act certificate for the property within the Chattahoochee River Corridor. And it is Old Riverside Park. It is at 500 Old Riverside Drive in Council District 6. The city is proposing to construct a public park. It's approximately a 24-acre park. The Atlanta Regional Commission has reviewed this application and found that the project is consistent with the Chattahoochee River Corridor Plan. The National Park Service did have comments. Overall, they felt that the project aligns with their mission and appreciated the inclusion of the pollinator meadows and the stormwater bioretention facilities and the pervious parking. They just wanted us to make sure we utilize best management practices, which we will. So other than that, that was their comment. And given the determination, it is staff's recommendation to the Mayor and City Council to approve the resolution to authorize the Metropolitan River Protection Act for Old Riverside Drive for our park.
All right, have we received any public comment cards? All right, we will close the public comment period. You've heard the report of the Planning and Zoning Manager. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Baumann.
I move adoption of Agenda Item 2025-110, request for a resolution to approve the Metropolitan River Protection Act certificate for River Corridor Review, RC 2501SS for Old Riverside Park.
Motion by Mr. Baumann. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Ms. Mueller, that we to approve Agenda Item 2025-111, a resolution approving the Metropolitan River Protection Act certificate for the River Corridor Review for property located, I'm on the wrong one, I'm sorry. Request for approve a resolution for the Metropolitan River Protection Act certificate for the Old Riverside Park. Any discussion?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Baumann.
Just very briefly, thank you for mentioning and for the review of the best practices. I know we've had some discussion up here before about, concrete versus impervious. And, particularly when we're getting close to the river in these sensitive ecological areas, I'm glad that we're leading in this front. I think that's important that we continue to do that. And so I'm excited that this is the next step towards bringing Sandy Springs its next new park.
Yes.
So good job. And also, just on a personal note, congratulations on your graduation from Leadership Perimeter.
Thank you.
I joined you in that class, and it was great fun doing that with you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
We have a motion by Mr. Baumann. Is there a second?
Second. I did that. Second.
Mueller, okay.
Yeah.
That's what happens when I write things on the wrong line. Excuse me. All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Ms. Mueller, that we approve Agenda Item 2025-110, a Metropolitan River Protection Act certificate for the Old Riverside Park. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on Agenda Item 2025-110, resolution approving the Metropolitan River Protection Act certificate for River Corridor Review. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, now I'll get on the right line. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2025-111, consideration of a resolution to approve a Metropolitan River Protection Act certificate for River Corridor Review, RC 2502SS, for property located at 8050 Nesbitt Ferry Road, presented by Planning and Zoning Manager Michelle McIntosh Ross.
Back again.
Yes, last one. For your consideration is the approval of a resolution to authorize the Metropolitan River Protection Act for the property located within the Chattahoochee River Corridor area at 8050 Nesbitt Ferry Road. It's a 2.5-acre single-family lot. It's zoned RE2 in Council District 1. The applicant is proposing to construct a new garage, a garden shed, and a breezeway. The Atlanta Regional Commission has reviewed this application and found that this project is consistent with the Chattahoochee River Corridor Plan. And given this determination, the staff recommends that the Mayor and City Council to approve this resolution to authorize the Metropolitan River Protection Act certificate for the property located at 8050 Nesbitt Ferry Road.
Are we, any public comment cards? No. We'll close the public hearing. You've heard the report of the Planning and Zoning Manager. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul,
Mr. Paulson.
I move approval of agenda item 2025-111, approving a Metropolitan River Protection Act certificate for the River Corridor Review RC 2502SS for property located at 8050 Nesbitt Ferry Road.
Have a motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2025-111, a resolution to approve Metropolitan River Protection Act certificate for River Corridor Review for property located at 8050 Nesbitt Ferry Road. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2025-111, approval of a Metropolitan River Protection Act certificate for 8050 Nesbitt Ferry Road. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Moving to new business, the clerk will please read the next item, which is 2025-121.
Agenda item number 2025-121. This is consideration of an ordinance to repeal Section 3875 of the City of Sandy Springs Code of Ordinances as accomplished by ordinance number 2025-0403, approved and adopted on April 1st, 2025, presented by City Attorney Dan Lee.
Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I bring to you tonight a request, a recommendation that we repeal an action that we recommended to you on April the 1st. If you recall, we brought three ordinances to you that originated as model ordinances from ADL. The one that's before you tonight that I recommend repealing was one that we changed, and the change came in the form of taking away a 50-foot radius that was part of the original model ordinance submitted by ADL. As I mentioned to you that night, the purpose of this ordinance, and I've mentioned many times, was to give some direction to law enforcement as to what a adequate barrier would be between folks who couldn't get along on property that they both were entitled to be on. That 50-foot radius was tied to a house of worship, which I found to be, or thought to be, problematic within itself. We had a council member or two who was concerned about it. It was a little complicated. And to that end, I chose to take it out and bring that before the council. Since you all passed that, ADL and ACLU, two groups with whom I place great stock in a study of First Amendment rights, have been discussing it, and I'm convinced that a challenge to the ordinance would be not worth the gain from it. I've talked to the police department. They agree with me that the other two ordinances passed by Mayor and Council bring some adequate measures to the city that can protect and separate folks who may be arguing in the same public area. With that in mind, I would answer any questions, but I recommend that you appeal that section, which has been codified as Section 3875 of the Code of Ordinances.
All right, you've heard the report of the city attorney. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul?
Dr. Kelly. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. We do have the public hearing part of it. Are there any comments?
So the comment we received earlier is the one that was given at the general public hearing. So the only public comment I have is from Corey Isaacson.
Okay. You choose to speak any more, or did you say your piece?
Mayor, excuse me for interrupting you, Corey. I would submit to you that it's a little bit problematic that you made the change after the deadline for submitting a application to speak. So there may be people who wanted to speak who would have signed up but didn't get a chance to because you have to put the card in before we begin the meeting.
All right, so your recommendation is that
to seek whoever may want to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Does anybody else want to speak?
That's what I'm.
Okay, we have
We have a hand up.
Eitan. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. It's good to see you again. I just wanted to express my support for this recommendation from the city attorney. I also wanted to express my gratitude for your good work and for all of your good work on these issues. As the city attorney mentioned, there are two really strong ordinances that you all passed on April 1st, which will provide the protections needed by the citizens of and everybody in Sandy Springs. And this is the prudent move in terms of repealing this particular ordinance, which is not quite reflective of what the model language was, as Attorney Lee mentioned. But I just wanted to, again, commend you all for your work on this. Thank you for your partnership, and thank you for all you're doing for the people of Sandy Springs. And I also wanted to thank ACLU for their role in working with us on this. So thank you all.
Any other?
Did I introduce myself?
Yeah, please identify yourself.
Sure. My name is Eitan Davidson. I'm the Regional Director of ADL Southeast. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, Ms. Isaacs.
Thank you all. As you all know, I made clear my position in my remarks earlier in the meeting. I did want to clarify one thing, which is that the changes that were made to this ordinance the day before the vote made this ordinance, I would say, exceptionally egregious in its unconstitutionality, having no parameters at all. But I do want the council to know that the prior version of the ordinance that was tied to a 50-foot radius, there was a component of that ordinance that wasn't really discussed much by this council and seemed to have been overlooked. But that provision that I'm talking to was tied not just to 50 feet within a house of worship, or I think there was also language about an educational institution. There was catch-all language at the end that essentially created a buffer zone within 50 feet of public walkways, and I don't remember the exact language of that prior ordinance language, but essentially as we read it, that could be interpreted as applying to the whole of Sandy Springs as well, because once you create a buffer zone within 50 feet of any public walkway or public space, that covers a huge amount of public space in the city. So I just do want to note for the council that even the previous version of the ordinance that was before this council, we saw as very constitutionally problematic as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak to the motion or to the item? All right, we'll close the public hearing. You've heard the report of the city attorney. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul?
Dr. Kelly.
I move approval of agenda item 2025-121, an ordinance to repeal section 38-75 of the City of Sandy Springs Code of Ordinances as accomplished by ordinance number 2025-04-03, approved and adopted on April 1st, 2025.
Motion by Dr. Kelly. Is there a second? Motion by Dr. Kelly, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2025-121, an ordinance to repeal section 3875 of the City of Sandy Springs Code of Ordinances as accomplished by ordinance number 2005-0403, approved and adopted on April 1st, 2025. Any discussion? Dr. Kelly.
I'll get started. So Ms. Isaacson, there actually was quite a bit of concern around that phrasing public right-of-way. That was my central concern, because to your point, I felt that it was too broad. But I do want to echo what you all said and just thank you to the city attorney and to the ACLU and the ADL for, I think we're doing the right thing here. We're going to basically allow the laws that we have in place around disorderly conduct and such to be enforced, which I think they are sufficient. And I've said as much. I do hope that this, at least for me, sitting on this body, I want this to be sort of a lesson, if you will, a lesson learned, that to the extent that the ADL and the ACLU came together, had conversations, my opinion is that it would have been great if that had happened before we saw this language, at least before we had to vote, before we were asked to vote on this language. So I'm just, again, I'm very encouraged by the fact that we're, considering this appeal. I am fully in support of it. And again, thank you to everyone involved. And let's do our homework next time on the front end. Thanks.
Ms. Mueller.
So I think that of all the three, this was the one I had the most traffic on, conversations from constituents. Spoke with both the city attorney, the city manager, and I think that lessons learned is a good statement for next time, but I also think we did take that into account, as well as our constituents, what they've said. I think others also received comments, but we also worked with the ACLU and the ADL. So I think that this is the right move to go forward for this, and the concerns were they didn't understand how it was going to be enforced, and they felt it was infringing on their rights.
Okay. Ms. Rochelle.
So while I would strongly oppose any kind of hate, anti-Semitism, any kind of hate, I agree that that we should repeal this, and it was a lot to take in at our meeting, and I wasn't, we just learned a lot as we were sitting here, so lesson learned. I wanted to ask you, Dan, about the other two ordinances. Will they hold up? Because I was concerned with the first one and still am, because I feel like we have other ordinances, like our soliciting ordinance or permitting that you have to have for soliciting. So I'm just curious about those two, especially the first one.
I feel they will, and the conversations that have been had, just like these conversations, I think there's an agreement that they would be upheld.
So we're not looking at it to repeal or
I don't
anything?
have a recommendation for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Mr. Baumann.
Thanks, Mayor. I've got a little bit of a statement, comments. The question I keep asking is, how did we get here? This so-called buffer ordinance originated in December when it was first proposed to and brought forward by the mayor. It was then placed on our first January agenda work session without any advance notice to council or the community, prompting immediate concerns about both the substance and process by council. Then roughly 7 weeks ago at our April 1 meeting, the ordinance, along with two related ordinances, was brought back for public hearing. However, in the day or even hours leading up to the meeting, more process issues and confusion. Significant edits, including the last-minute removal of the 50-foot radius provision, were made after the agenda and ordinance was published, and no notice was given to the council. I raised that issue during the meeting, and it was acknowledged on the record that the change had been made because it was considered, and I quote, unnecessary. The mayor affirmed that. That process fell short of the standard our community deserves. Council was asked to vote on language that is now clearly understood to have not been fully vetted. And when I asked the city attorney during the meeting whether the ordinance met the constitutional standards of time, manner, place, we were told, and I quote, no doubt about it. Now, just a few weeks later, we're being told the opposite. And more than that, we're being told after all the urgency, time, cost, and angst, essentially, never mind. The mayor and the city attorney now say the ordinance isn't necessary at all, after all, that other tools are sufficient and that defending it isn't worth the challenge. And let me also be clear, I do not blame the ADLU, the ACLU, or any member of this council, not one bit. This outcome was not the result of advocacy or disagreement. It was the result of a flawed process, and responsibility for that process sits squarely with the mayor and our legal counsel. This ordinance was unprecedented in our state, and instead of taking the time to get it right, this council and our residents were put through a process that proved divisive, costly, and ultimately unnecessary. There is a better way to approach sensitive, high-stake issues. When this council adopted Georgia's first municipal hate crime ordinance in 2019, we followed a collaborative, transparent process that built consensus, and I thank the ADL for their leadership at that time. That effort stands in contrast to what happened here, and it shows what this body is capable of doing when the process is done right. So yes, lesson learned. Repealing this ordinance is the right decision, and I support it, but we can't treat this as a routine correction. I agree with some of my colleagues on this. It was a preventable misstep, one that never should have gotten this far, and we owe it to the public to learn from them.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2025-121, an ordinance to repeal section 3875 of the City of Sandy Springs Code of Ordinances is accomplished by ordinance number 2025-0403, approved and adopted April 1, 2025. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2025-112. This is consideration of a resolution appointing a member to the Sandy Springs Board of Appeals, presented by Mayor Rusty Paul.
We have a vacancy on the Board of Appeals due to the resignation of Bill Thaxton. Bill's been a long time community leader and involved very much in the incorporation effort. But he feels that it's time for him to step aside. So I am asking council to approve the raising of Kim Gay, who is currently on the Board of Ethics, up to the Board of Appeals. She's been very active in the community. I think she's got the right temperament, background, neighborhood connections to understand what the role of the Board of Appeals is. And so I'm asking council to approve Kim Gay as the newest member to the Sandy Springs Board of Appeals. Is there a motion?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
I move approval of agenda item 2025-112, consideration of a resolution appointing member to Sandy Springs Board of Appeals, Ms. Kim Gay.
Have a motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second? Motion by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Mr. DiGiulio, that we approve the agenda item 2025-112, a resolution appointing Kim Gay to the Board of Appeals. Any discussion?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
Have you explained to Ms. Gay that there's actually more activity at the Board of
A
Appeals?
lot more
than with the
activity, and that was one of the
group?
reasons why she was interested in going to there, because the Ethics Commission's been more like the Maytag repairman. They haven't had much to do. So, yeah, she's fully aware. She's fully aware. We have a motion saying any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2025-112, a resolution appointing Kim Gay to the Board of Sandy Springs Board of Appeals. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. Clerk, please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2025-113. This is consideration of a resolution appointing alternate members to the Sandy Springs Board of Ethics, presented by Mayor Rusty Paul.
Again, we've got some vacancies on the Board of Ethics, and I've got another one that I'll probably bring. I look for people with specific backgrounds on who really do understand ethics, and Renata Austin is a minister trained in ethics, and I think she would be an excellent addition to the as an alternate member to the Board of Appeals. The other's Ben Taub. I've known Ben for a number of years. He's actually a neighbor of mine. We worked on some legislative issues through the years. I know him to be a very dedicated, committed person who's very serious, and I think will take the role of the being on the Board of Ethics very, very seriously. And so it is without hesitation that I recommend both Ms. Austin and Mr. Taub to the Board of Ethics. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
I move approval of agenda item 2025-113, resolution appointing alternate members to the Sandy Springs Board of Ethics, Renee Austin and Ben Taub.
Have a motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second? Motion by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Mr. DiGiulio. Any discussion?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
Have you explained to these folks that there's actually not a whole lot that happens?
Yeah, we did. I did.
Just checking to make
this
sure.
This is about getting engaged in the community at class 101. But it's important. First of all, we are a city of ethics, and we do have to have a full board to be able to maintain that qualification. And so it's very important. And while we're all glad that they haven't had a lot to do, it is important as a statement of our values and who we are as a community that we have this panel to examine any charges, complaints, or concerns that are brought up about the ethics of the elected officials or the city. So I think even though they don't have a lot to do, this probably is one of our more important boards just for the fact that it exists. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2025-113, a resolution appointing alternate members to the Sandy Springs Board of Ethics. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. They're going to be really excited for a while. Clerk will please read the next item.
This is agenda item number 2025-114, consideration of a resolution to enter into an intergovernmental agreement by and between the Fulton County Board of Education and the City of Sandy Springs, Georgia, for temporary use of facilities and to authorize the mayor to execute the agreement. Presented by Police Major Dan Nabel.
Major Nabel.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity tonight. We're recommending the entering into an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Sandy Springs and the Fulton County Board of Education to house they have a system that assists us in training for use of force and de-escalation. They essentially, what happened in 2022, they got a grant and they acquired this system for the purposes of training their police officers and for immersing their students who are interested in criminal justice, particularly law enforcement, in the judgmental shooting area. And it turns out that they have this wonderful system, but no place to keep it. And we have this wonderful new building, thanks to you all and city management and everyone else, and nothing to put in the room. So we would like to enter into an intergovernmental agreement between us and Fulton County where we would house their system in our building for our mutual benefit. The agreement outlines the parameters for how it will be used. Essentially, it's pretty simple. Fulton County Schools has already paid for the system with a grant that they received, so we don't incur any expense in the acquiring of the system. We would just share evenly the expense of maintaining the equipment from year to year. It requires some software updates and things like that. And then if we wanted any special equipment that's not already included, we would buy that ourselves, but that would be a separate issue. We've also outlined the parameters for what happens if something gets damaged or whatnot, and it's very equitable to both parties involved. So we anticipate that the yearly maintenance expense in total will be a little over $14,000, which our share would be a little bit over $7,000, which we believe is minimal compared to the benefit that we get out of this system. For those who are not familiar with these systems, it's essentially, we can take you to the range and teach marksmanship. I can teach you how to make the bullet where you want it to go. But what I can't teach at the firing range is the judgmental portion of it, of should you pull the trigger or should you use a different de-escalation tactic. And that's what this system does to help educate our officers. And if you've ever gone to Citizen Police Academy, we let some citizens come and experience that as well. So we believe that it's a very valuable experience for just those few $1,000s each year to keep it up. So we would recommend that you approve this IGA.
All right, you've heard the report of the police major. What's the desire of council?
Mayor.
Mr. DiGiulio.
Move approval of item 2025-114, the resolution to enter into an agreement between Fulton County Board of Education and the City of Sandy Springs for the temporary use of facilities and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement.
We have a motion, Mr. DiGiulio. Is there a second? Motion by Mr. DiGiulio, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2025-114, a resolution entering into an intergovernmental agreement with the Fulton County Board of Education, City of Sandy Springs for temporary use of facilities and authorizing the mayor to execute the agreement. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2025-114, a resolution entering into an IGA with the Fulton County Board of Education City for temporary use of facilities. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
This is agenda item number 2025-115. Consideration to approve a contract award to East Coast Grading, Inc. for the FY 2025 Local Maintenance Improvement Grant Paving, and to authorize the city manager to execute the contract. Presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and Council, good evening. Tonight, we recommend a contract award to East Coast Grading to provide the FY 2025 Local Maintenance and Improvement Grant resurfacing services to the City of Sandy Springs, and request authorization for the city manager to execute the same. A little background: on May the 21st of last year, MDS Technologies, our consultant hired to conduct our PCI survey of city streets, presented its findings, and along with those findings, provided the city a 3-year paving program based upon PCI scores at the time. FY 2025 would be the first of those 3 years proposed in MDS Technologies' PCI-assessed paving plan provided last year. Seeking a qualified contractor for the resurfacing work, the city issued an invitation to bid on January the 22nd of this year. A pre-bid conference was held on January 30th, and the city received 9 bids on March 6, 2025. Among those 9 bids, East Coast Grading, in the amount of $6,466,760, was deemed the lowest, most responsive, and responsible bidder. There are sufficient funds available in Project T3000 to award this contract, and the staff prepared estimate for the project is $7 million, as was the recommendation with the survey at the PCI survey last year of a $7 million annual investment to maintain an average PCI target score of 80. With that, Mayor and Council, I'll conclude my presentation.
You've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
I move approval of agenda item 2025-115, approve a contract award to East Coast Grading for the 2025 Local Maintenance Improvement Grant Paving to authorize city manager to execute same.
Motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2025-115, a contract award to East Coast Grading for the FY 2025 Local Maintenance Improvement Grant Paving. Any discussion?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Marty. So this, you had $7 million set aside. There's only 6.4. Have you got additional streets that you could add on as this nears completion if it turns out that extra money isn't absorbed? Is that how you're going to do this?
We could well, or as in many cases, we'll identify repairs throughout the course of the year that we could also apply those funds to.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2025-115, contract award to East Coast Grading for the LMIG paving program, and authorize city manager to execute the contract. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. Clerk, please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2025-116. Consideration for approval, the list of streets and application to the Georgia Department of Transportation for the fiscal year 2025 Local Road Assistance Administration, that's the LRA supplemental grant, and to authorize the mayor to execute the application and cover letter. Also presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and Council, in this case, we get an opportunity to move ahead into the next year paving cycle with the availability of funds as provided by the Local Road Assistance Administration supplemental grant as offered here. On January 7th of this year, Council approved the city's application to the Georgia Department of Transportation for the fiscal year 2025 LMIG grant. That grant being applied in part to the resurfacing contract we just talked about. In that grant in the amount of $1,040,716.61. On March 20th of this year, GDOT announced the 2025 Local Road Assistance Administration supplemental grant, making additional funds available to local governments for funding of needed projects within state rights-of-way, city, county, state rights-of-way. The city's supplemental, or LRA supplemental distribution amount, as calculated, is $1,276,784.86. Eligible activities for projects for the LRA supplemental are the same as the LMIG program and use the same application process. The LRA supplemental funds will require no local government matching funds, in this case, 0% local match requirement, and the application is due to GDOT by June the 15th of this year. Staff prepared the attached list of streets representing an additional, and to the prior program presented to you, 4.15 miles of roads that are in need of repaving and currently projected for resurfacing in the fiscal year 2026 program. The list was compiled using the 2023 PCI assessment that we discussed just a moment ago. The proposed street list is attached to the package, as well as the other documents, very similar in nature to the original LMIG application documents we presented earlier this year in January. With that, staff recommends this attached list of streets as the city's proposal to the state in the interest of receiving these some $1,276,784.86 of grant funds. The current estimate for these street repavings, just to be on the safe side, is slightly higher than the amount at $1,312,000 and change, in the interest of ensuring we use all of the funds.
All right, you've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
I move approval of agenda item 2025-116, approval of the list of streets and application to the Georgia DOT for the fiscal year 2025 Local Road Assistance Administration, LRA, supplemental grant, and authorize the mayor to execute the application and cover letter.
Motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2025-116, the list of streets and application to the Georgia Department of Transportation for FY25 Local Road Assistance Administration Supplemental Grant. Any discussion?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
Marty, real quick, when do you think we would know whether we're going to get this money?
There's a pretty strong degree of certainty that as soon as we submit the application, we have access to the money. So we expect the award. Mitch Yergin, our Field Services Unit Manager, is here. Mitch, I believe the language indicated 1st of July, those monies. Say again?
10 days after acceptance.
10 days after acceptance. So we expect to submit the application, but before the due date of June 15th, and by the end of the month, 1st of July, we expect to receive the monies.
And at that point, what will you do? Let's assume this all happens. Who is actually going to do this paving?
We have two options. We have great prices, a very good competitive bid for the resurfacing project we're currently running. First option would be offer that work at those prices. Yes, sir. So we have that option. Contractor doesn't want to take the additional work, we'll put it out on the street and see if we can't get that same good pricing that we got with these 9 bids we just received.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2025-116, approving the list of streets and applications to the Georgia Department of Transportation for the Local Road Assistance Administration Supplemental Grant. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2025-117. This is consideration to approve change order 2 to the existing contract with Vertical Earth, Inc. as it relates to the Mount Vernon Johnsons Ferry Corridor Improvement Project, that's TS-191, and to authorize the city manager to execute the contract. Presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and Council, I bring to you tonight change order 2 to the Mount Vernon Highway, Johnson Ferry Road Corridor, Roswell Road project. We all know it as TS-191, the project immediately across the street on Roswell Road, Mount Vernon Highway, and Johnson Ferry. Thus the name. So with that, as you may recollect, on December 19th of 2023, we awarded that original contract to Vertical Earth in the amount of $15,881,593.38. Notice to proceed for construction was issued to the contractor on February 26, 2024. We've had one previous change order in the amount of $189,598 authorized by the city manager on January 7th of this year, all in that work in regard to primarily drainage design changes as it would relate to utility impacts and utility changes. The change order I bring to you tonight has a couple of components to it. The first of those, again, further drainage system design changes. That total for this requested change order tonight in the amount of some $192,269.96. That being necessitated by conflicts between Atlanta gas lines, their relocation and adjustments within the right-of-way, and the lack of available right-of-way to further adjust the storm drainage system within particular portions of the project. So with those redesigns of the drainage system to accommodate maintaining all of the utilities within the right-of-way and making roadway adjustments, the work is quoted and identified by the contractor totals some $192,000. City fiber network relocations. The city has a fiber system aerial throughout the project limits, as well as through project TS-192, the Mount Vernon Highway Corridor project, of course terminating here at City Hall and into our traffic management center. We've got a quote from the contractor in this case with $46,118 to take care of both the work required for fiber relocation for TS-191 as well as the fiber relocation work required on TS-192 with those fiber relocations. It seemed, as we sought prices from both contractors and subs for that work, this appeared to be the most reasonable and productive cost for the city in the interest of relocating the fiber. Revised illuminated street signs, a small change at $3,759.99. But at the time of bidding, we didn't have the full name Spruill Lane identified for the new connector street between Mount Vernon and Johnson Ferry. In this case, we now have the pricing for the cost difference between what was bid in the contract and the fully named illuminated street signs required for the new street sign. And then finally, we've identified work, especially with a utility relocation intensive project, as this has been, identified a contract time extension of some 64 calendar days requested by the contractor and investigated and adjudicated by staff in the interest of conducting, again, drainage system improvements and changes as per site changes, unforeseen conditions, et cetera. The original contract time was 730 calendar days for TS-191. This extension would bring the total calendar period to 794 calendar days, with a contract completion date with those days added of April 28th, 2026. The proposed total fee for this change order is $242,148. Of this total, $202,000 will be funded by TS-191, and as I indicated, we're also being able to take advantage through good pricing of some $39,000 worth of work in TS-192, which TS-192 is a separate project account would fund that work. Sufficient funds are available in both projects to fund this work. With that, staff recommends acceptance of this change order.
You've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Ms. Mueller.
I move that we approve agenda item 2025-117 to approve the change order to the existing contract with Vertical Earth, Inc. as it relates to the Mount Vernon Johnson Ferry Corridor Improvement Project, TS-191, and to authorize the city manager to execute the contract.
A motion by Ms. Mueller. Is there a second? A motion by Ms. Mueller, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve the agenda item 2025-117, the change order to the existing contract with Vertical Earth relating to the Mount Vernon Johnson Ferry Corridor improvements. Any discussion? Ms. Rochelle.
Hi, I actually think they're doing a really good job. Are they the ones though that keep cutting the gas lines?
If you're talking about last weekend, in this case, no, ma'am. That was the other contractor. So, and to that end, just as far as gas main hits, strikes, whatever the case, we, as well as our contractors, absolutely treat those seriously. We're investigating now. We're investigating with the contractor that struck that gas main last week. We want to protect it's important to us to protect the public, and as well, and I think the contractors know that as well, too. It's important to us to protect their people while they're at it. The mistakes they make like that are injurious and potentially serious to everyone. So we're investigating with them now, and we hope to find the root cause in this particular strike that happened last Friday so that it doesn't happen again, and we can improve the system, whatever the flaw might have been in last week's gas strike.
they got it cleaned up pretty fast, so that was good. One last thing, and I know this isn't about vertical earth, but the power lines that are going to be buried, are they all around, which lines are going to be buried? Is it the ones all the way around the park?
So the lines all the way, and I'm trying to dial up the visual image of our plan. If you recollect, we had like 5 different segments that we were funding with this, and so pardon me if I get close, but not quite. Everything around the park is buried and underground. You'll see the work out there now from a subcontractor working for Georgia Power Company. Georgia Power is the lead in that aerial to underground utility work, UTEC. They're putting in the pull boxes, the cabinets, the trenches, and a lot of conduit in the ground, spaghetti in the trench out there. And they've been making pretty good progress here of late with that work. So that goes up to about the intersection with Boylston, maybe a little bit beyond that, and then it's back to aerial utilities from there. If you recollect from that plan as well, there was also aerial to underground work, because aerial to underground work had already taken place on Boylston, especially with the new development a few years ago, both complexes there. So as well, they will be taking aerial to underground the utilities on that stretch of Boylston immediately south of the park. Good bit of work there to go yet. Not only is it the wires you see, but then at the end of this, and you might recollect what started it all off was Georgia Power Company transmission coming out to set up a couple of transmission poles to reroute transmission up front. There's still some transmission as well to be demolished when it's all said and done as a part of this aerial to underground effort out there with 191. But short answer, around the park, yes. A little further down Boylston and just past that intersection there at Boylston, and then back to aerial utilities from there.
Eden, as a side note, I'd love to have all the wires buried.
We would all love that, but it is a very, very large price tag. I wish we had underground utilities throughout the city of Sandy Springs, because we wouldn't have had the power issues that we just had from the tree falling.
Well, maybe we could start that conversation. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Ms. Mueller.
So, Marty, just to clarify, the other gas leaks we had, I thought, were on gas lines that were marked as non-active that were actually active. Is that correct? The ones we had in the past?
There's been a combination of issues, and even on the strike Friday, we've been in pretty close contact since we had our first couple of gas line strikes out there. There's an executive with Atlanta Gas Light who's a little more senior, has the ability to command a little more attention on utility locates and those kinds of things. He came out here Friday afternoon, as a matter of fact, as soon as he heard about the gas main strike there. So I could characterize it as, obviously, whoever struck the line thought that the line wasn't active, and they saw the line there. So there's a flaw in their systems and their coordination with Atlanta Gas Light that said you didn't get the right information. The folks in the heavy equipment at that point didn't have the right information. So our intention from here is to find out how their system let them down on that. And we look internally to the contractors as well. They receive the information, the marks are made, and then you've got a construction site with a lot of lines going in, a lot of lines coming out, and this contractor in this case selectively being required to take out pieces of the abandoned work to put in the new storm drainage system as well. So there's a complex series of communications that these folks need to just absolutely pay attention to, and we want to make sure they're doing that along the way.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2025-117, change order to the existing contract with Vertical Earth as it relates to the Mount Vernon Johnson Ferry Corridor Improvement Project. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
This is agenda item number 2025-118, consideration of a resolution to approve Amendment 6 to the design services contract with Gresham Smith and Partners related to the Hammond Drive corridor improvements and multi-use path project, and to authorize the city manager to execute the amendment. Presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and Council, this Amendment 6 that I bring before you tonight for Gresham Smith's design contract with the city for TS 2193, that's the Hammond Corridor Widening Project, is the sixth requirement along the way in designing and delivering the design work for this Hammond Drive widening project. In this case, the contract was initially awarded to Gresham Smith and Partners in September of 2018 in the amount of $237,985 using 2016 T-SPLOST funds at the time to perform the conceptual design work for the entirety of the project. Amendment 1 was awarded 2019 to provide additional traffic studies as there were concerns about traffic impacts as far away as Hammond down Mount Vernon to the west of here. Amendment 2, awarded in August of 2019, provided the visualizations and flyover video that many of you may recollect and have seen on the project page in the amount of $47,500. Amendment 3, awarded in December 2022, focused now on the segment that's under design right now, with providing topographical survey, subsurface utility engineering surveys, and initial preliminary design in the amount of $218,000. And Amendment 4 in May 2022, now with a good understanding of what work was required and sufficient work to also scope the level of effort associated with providing construction plans, it created a change order, supplemental amendment here, in this case of $2,951,701. And Amendment 5 in February 2024 for traffic signal phasing analysis at Hammond Drive and Roswell Road, and extended the contract at the time with Gresham Smith through March 31st of 2027. A little further explanation on Amendment 5, that was more about the adjustments to existing traffic on that stretch of Hammond Drive between Roswell Road and where this work would cease at Boylston, so that we could understand and improve traffic flow once the new roadway was open to traffic, 4 lanes of traffic now feeding into this connection to Roswell Road. This proposed Amendment 6 in an amount of $218,379 includes the remaining environmental studies needed to obtain environmental permits for the construction project, a very significant update to fly-through videos as we communicate to the public what comes next, and as well studies and additional staging plans that that needed to be considered as we reviewed options for what about the opportunity to leave 643 Laurel Terrace in place and occupied for perhaps longer than the original start for the remainder of the construction project, given the initial indications that the occupant there may want to be able to reside there, and it was in the city's interest to allow that. And along with that, we also propose a contract time extension that would extend services with this contract with Gresham Smith and Partners through September 15th, 2028, to complete engineering, bid, and construction support services in support of this contract. Mayor and Council, any questions?
All right, you've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of Council?
Mayor Paul.
Ms. Mueller.
I move that we approve Agenda Item 2025-118, a resolution to approve the Amendment 6 to the Design Services Contract with Gresham Smith and Partners, LP, related to the Hammond Drive Corridor Improvements and Multi-Use Path Project, and to authorize the city manager to execute the amendment.
Have a motion by Ms. Mueller. Is there a second? Motion by Ms. Mueller, seconded by Mr. DiGiulio, that we approve Agenda Item 2025-118, the Amendment 6 to the Design Services Contract with Gresham Smith and Partners. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on Agenda Item 2025-118. The Amendment 6 to the Design Services Contract with Gresham Smith and Partners. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2025-119. This is consideration of an ordinance to approve a budget amendment to fund certain site improvements as capital projects under the CIP fund, William Payne House, presented by Budget Manager Michael Heider.
Mr. Heider.
Heater, excuse me.
Heater.
Thank you, esteemed Mayor, member of City Council. I'm Michael Heater, your budget manager. I'm here to present two budget amendments. The first one, which is item 119, to create a new capital project for improvements at the Williams Payne House. Basically, several tasks at the Williams Payne House were funded under the general fund facilities site improvements budget. However, the work was deferred to next fiscal year coming up. Unfortunately, the work's deferred, but the appropriations for this work will lapse, as all things do in the general fund, with fiscal year end. In order to preserve this appropriation, we would like to create a capital project. So this same appropriation, which won't cost the city anything because it's already been appropriated in the general fund, will be put into a new capital project. Instead of spending the money on the project, that'll be a transfer to the CIP fund. And we're asking that the mayor and council do this because even though the amount is within the discretionary authority of city manager, this creates a new CIP project, which increases overall expenditures in the CIP fund. That does require council approval, although it is using previously appropriated money, so there would be no actual cost to additional cost to the city. So we recommend approval of this budget amendment ordinance.
All right, you've heard the report of the budget manager. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Ms. Mueller.
I move that we approve agenda item 2025-119, an ordinance to approve a budget amendment to fund certain site improvements as capital projects under the CIP fund, the William Payne House.
Have a motion by Ms. Mueller. Is there a second? Motion by Ms. Mueller, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2025-119, a budget amendment to fund certain site improvements as capital projects under the CIP at the Williams Payne House. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2025-119, approving the budget amendment to fund certain site improvements under the CIP fund at Williams Payne House. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2025-120, consideration of an ordinance to approve a budget amendment to increase capital contingency within the CIP fund. Fire Station number 5. This is presented by Budget Manager Michael Hyder.
Mr. Heater.
So that's okay. I'm just used to it.
I didn't fall in that trap the second time.
Roger, you got it right. Anyhow, this is the second budget amendment that I'm presenting. This is a little bit different. This is generally we try to make our capital contingency versus a previous policy and previous practice to be 3% of what we call open projects. That's available project budget plus any unexpended encumbrances like the open POs that we have. We usually have plenty, around 5, 6, or even 7. Don't quite get to that magic 10 that us accountants always like for contingency, but 3% is the target. And capital contingency is kind of where our public works folks very good at budgeting the project and running it so that we have a little extra, and we just take that extra and to keep it as to keep it in the capital fund, we put it into capital contingency. It usually accumulates to a very good amount, such that even with new projects coming in a fiscal year, there's enough in there to cover the new projects that are coming in. So we don't list a capital contingency increase in our budget book. However, this year we had a little something odd happen. We've had enough accumulated capital contingency to be the last portion of funding Path 400, Segment 2 of Path 400. And we utilized that at the last meeting. We utilized that $2 million to plug in the last portion of that for the city match, the grants that we were being awarded. This took our capital contingency down to just right about 3%, a little bit over 3% of our current open projects. Now, of course, the budget train is going through right now, and since that happened after our planning, I was looking at this thinking, gee, when the next, about $20 million worth of projects are authorized next year, we're not going to have that 3% of, we're going to go under the 3% limit. So we did a calculation, about 210 would bring it to exactly 3%. I thought we'd just do a rounded amount about 200,000 because projects are closing out, and that should help capital contingency anyway. We also thought we'd do this as a current budget amendment because we've assembled materials instead of adding a capital contingency line. We just put that in to this year to cover the projects coming in last year. Unlike the previous budget amendment, this will cost, because we're making this amendment increasing the CIP funding, this will actually be using a little bit of fund balance in this will be using fund balance in the general fund to transfer to the CIP fund in this year. However, as noted in the agenda memo, we already got a little bonus we weren't particularly expecting out of Fire Station 5 closing out under budget and returning some of what we call pay-as-you-go or pay-go financing that we approved several years ago to get Fire Station 5 going. So both of these, both that increase that already happened and this decrease has already been factored into our computations for what we have available going forward in the budget. And we just like to formalize this increase this year to make sure capital contingency is ready for all the projects that come in next year. So we recommend approval of the budget amendment.
All right, you've heard the report of the budget manager. What's the desire of council? Mr. Paulson.
Approval of agenda item. Hang on a second. I move approval of agenda item 2025-120, ordinance to approve a budget amendment to increase capital contingency within the CIP fund Fire Station number 5.
Motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second? Motion by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2025-120, an ordinance approving a budget amendment to increase capital contingency within the CIP fund. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 120, an ordinance to approve budget amendment to increase capital contingency in the CIP fund. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. Moving to mayor and council reports, one of the things that I want to remind everybody is that applications for this year's Citizen Leadership Academy will open on Monday, June the 2nd. Information will be available on the city's website, so if you're interested in joining the Citizen Leadership Academy, those applications will open again on Monday, June the 2nd. Several of us were today at the Envision conference, Envision Perimeter, which is looking at how we get the perimeter market into the last half of the 21st century. I pointed out that we're a quarter of the way through the 21st century, and I don't think very many people realize that, but it was a very good conversation. The perimeter is one of probably our most important business commercial district in not only in Sandy Springs, but really throughout Atlanta, and having them lead the discussion about where we go from here was very good. We also had the Greater North Fulton Futures Conference here in this room last week. It was also a very healthy discussion about where we go in the future. So we've got a lot of conversation looking at our future, looking at what kind of community we want to see going forward. And then on top of that, we had House ATL upstairs on the third floor where we looked at housing and had an opportunity to continue the discussion about where we are on housing. Everybody agrees that housing is a real challenge in today's market. The cost of it's very hard to have affordable housing when you have unaffordable real estate, particularly land, and the challenges around that are continuing on, and we continue to search for better answers, and that conference was part of that effort to find those. I was able to attend the Rotary Club's teacher recognition program last week. They recognized the Teachers of the Year in each of our schools, and it was quite heartening to be able to see a lot of young, bright men and women in our schools and what they're doing and the success and the quality of education they're providing, and hear their principals talk about how extraordinary these people were was very, very heartening. Also, a couple of things at North Springs. We attended the community breakfast last week, and also North Springs was honored as the America's Best Music program across the whole country, out of thousands of schools. They've always had a great magnet arts program there, and this just goes to show what kind of quality education that we have in this community, whether it's private schools or public schools. They're all doing great work, and it was very heartening to see that this week. Does anybody else have anything? All right, staff reports, the financials.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am pinch hitting for Tony, who had to leave a little bit earlier today. The financials through the end of March 31st are included in your agenda packet. We are currently, with these financials, 75% of the way through the fiscal year. Good news, we are currently trending ahead on revenues, having collected 96% of our projections through March 31st, and we are spending less than our adopted budget at 65%, roughly. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions of the city manager about the city finances? All right, hearing none, there is no executive session tonight, so Mr. DiGiulio. Mr. DiGiulio moves adjournment. Is there a second? Motion by Mr. DiGiulio, seconded by Mr. Paulson, that we adjourn. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We are adjourned.